Hello and welcome to World Business Report. I'm Susanna Streeter. In a moment, we'll also find out why Lloyd's of London believes a massive cyber attack could cost the global economy more than some of the world's worst natural disasters. But we begin with China's economy, which has grown more than expected in the second quarter of this year by 6.9%. It matters because the country, regarded as the world's factory, is also the world's second largest economy. Now, as you can see here, it's a far cry, though, from how things used to be. This shows how, for much of the last 25 years, China has been growing much faster. One of the big worries is this number. 258% is the size of China's debts compared to its economy. That means it owes more than 2.5 times everything it makes in a year. And much of the debt is linked to the red-hot property market, which the government is trying to cool. The cost of new housing in major cities rose 10.4% in May. The government also looks like it's succeeding with another problem. It said Chinese firms have spent $75.2 billion on foreign merger and acquisitions, which is down almost half on the same time a year ago. Financial regulation has become a top priority for Xi Jinping's government, and over the weekend, he's been at a meeting of regulators in Beijing where he called for the country's central bank to take a bigger role in managing financial risks. Well, with me now is Linda Yueh, who's Professor of Economics at London Business School. Hello there, Linda. Thanks very much for coming in. Let's talk about this figure, 6.9%. Just how reliable is it?
I think there'll be many who say that China's growth rate is never all that reliable. The growth target for the year is 6.5%. And so, in a sense, we probably expect a slowdown in the second half of the year, because they'll probably come in closer to target than not. And the reason is because China's been meeting their growth targets by stimulating the economy, unleashing loans, which is added to the debt issue. So the expectation in markets is that China should actually slow its economy somewhat if it can get the debt issue that you mentioned under control. But actually the more reliable figures are factory output and retail sales. And actually both of those did come in stronger than expected than what markets were predicting. Factory output, key indicator of manufacturing, grew by 7.6% in June from a year earlier. Retail sales, which is another key indicator, especially in terms of Chinese consumption, which is more sustainable than investment in that country, grew by 11% year on year. So I think those figures do suggest the Chinese economy, on the real economy side, consumption and investment, are actually resilient and somewhat readjusting more to domestic demand than, say, exports.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's this adjustment of the economy which is the target, really. However, there are still an awful lot of reforms that need to be enacted. Do you think that's why we've seen, for example, the Shanghai Composite Index today fall back? Because there are concerns that actually still too much work needs to be done.
Yeah, very much so. We should probably add that 6.9% beats market expectations. And the concern is how much of that is still being fueled by government stimulus, especially around credit. And I think that's probably why markets would like to see more slowdown, a greater slowdown than last year. So last year, the Chinese economy grew at 6.7%. And the expectation is, as I say, that China should actually slow its economy down, because most people would rather see a more sustainable, slower growth rate for China, which is already a middle-income country, than one that tries to mimic its growth rate in the past 25 years. Because remember, China is a developing country. It was poor for most of the past quarter century. So as it becomes middle income, it needs to adjust to a slower pace of growth, and actually, importantly, to accept it. If you accepted it, then I think some of the reforms which slow down growth become more palatable, including the financial sector, which is one of the main reasons why loan growth is such a problem, because it's not properly allocated by the market, by interest rates. It's still state-directed. Markets would rather see less growth driven by that, even if it means slower growth, rather than having something which ultimately, well, could end rather badly, one worries.
Okay, Linda Yueh, Professor of Economics at London Business School, thank you very much for talking to us.